Mustafa Ali has requested his release from WWE, saying his message cannot be done and cannot be delivered while under WWE. We talk about it next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, what were your initial reactions to seeing on Twitter and Instagram that Mustafa Ali has requested his release from WWE?
To be honest with you, I really wasn't all that surprised. I mean, it's no secret that he really hasn't been utilized very much at all. I mean, granted, he was supposedly going to be pushed as this hacker character, which they kind of touched on, but not really, so that wasn't really delivered upon. Retribution was pretty much a disaster from the get-go, whether it was the masks, the way they were presented. You know, there's certainly talent there, but I think when you look at WWE, I mean, it's no secret that they are pretty much the land of the big guy. You know, they've got their much larger guys, their figures that they're going to try and push and promote, like a Roman Reigns, like a Brock Lesnar, guys that they're confident are going to go out there and sell out stadiums, like what they're doing at WrestleMania. Right now, they probably don't think that's Mustafa Ali. And not only that, but the other thing about WWE, which everybody's been really critical of over the past, I would say maybe 5-10 years, is they don't really have a strong mid-card. You know, and I think that's where he'd fit in. Right. Mid-card, upper mid-card, probably could main event, depending on the pay-per-view. But, you know, WWE tends to just build around 4 or 5 main guys, and unfortunately, Mustafa Ali is not that guy right now.
I think some would even argue that it's less than 4 or 5. Some would say it's like 1 or 2, and those 1 or 2 are Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. But I think WWE right now, I would agree with you a whole lot. Their mid-card is pretty weak. While having such a deep roster, they don't do much with that mid-card that they should. Their tag team division could be a lot better, and it's not. Mustafa Ali, to me, and I think a lot of people on social media would agree with me on this, that he is everything that you want for, at least in a big-time player in WWE. And it seemed like they were at least going to try to give him a big push in that early 2019, heading into WrestleMania, being Daniel Bryan's opponent at WrestleMania, had he not gotten injured. And then that eventually went to Kofi Kingston. We got Kofi Mania. So in a way, on one side, it's a blessing in disguise, and another, it's a giant curse. And even though Mustafa Ali was stuck with Retribution, he made the best of it. And it seemed like no matter what WWE gave him, he made the best of it. And I think going elsewhere, if he is granted his release, at the time of this recording, he has not been granted the release, I think he would flourish no matter what promotion he's in. And I think he's a great in-ring wrestler. I think he's an underrated promo, and he's definitely one of, if not the most underutilized wrestler on the WWE roster right now.
Yeah, and especially a guy like him. I mean, look, there's no secret that if you spent some time in WWE, whether it was a prominent role, whether it wasn't a prominent role, that definitely is going to help your resume. It's going to help you find work. And he's no different. You know, you look at some of the bigger guys just by sheer size, or just people who have had attention because of their time in NXT or on the main roster. You look at Kyle O'Reilly. He's the guy that never spent time in the main roster, but because there is a more dedicated hardcore fan base and an option like AEW, he goes right over to AEW, and he's not exactly a main eventer right now, but he's definitely in a main event storyline, I guess you could say, or at least being pushed a little more prominently than probably most would assume he'd be pushed if he did get promoted to the main roster in WWE. A guy like Braun Strowman, guy who won championships out of WrestleMania. Right now, wrestling is so unique that because of, you know, whether it's the internet, the hardcore fan base, social media, whatever the case may be, there's options out there for these guys. You look at the Iconics, they're doing their thing over in Impact Wrestling. You look at EC3 doing his thing in Ring of Honor. Braun Strowman has found a home. You know, if you want to find somewhere to go, you can find somewhere to go. Mustafa Ali, whether it's AEW, whether it's Impact, whether it's Ring of Honor, he'll be just fine. I'm not really worried about that. And the fact that he did get an opportunity in WWE, you know, while people sometimes hate on WWE, just having that on your resume certainly helps matters quite a bit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, whether we like it or not, they are still the #1 pro wrestling promotion in the world and will be for a very, very long time. I know people want to think that AEW is getting to that point, but it's going to be a while before there's even talk of AEW being that #1 promotion or getting close to that #1 promotion. But if Mustafa Ali does go to another promotion, where do you think he is best fit? To me, I know people are going to make the claim that the roster's too big right now, but I think Mustafa Ali would be great in AEW, not just because they're more of a work rate promotion compared to WWE or some of the other promotions, but I think something that's going to really help Mustafa Ali better than anything is production value. And you look at that one vignette that we saw of him doing the New America with Mustafa Ali and how great that was. If Tony Khan was able to use his production value that AEW can deliver and add that to the New America character, and that delivers the message that he's trying to deliver in pro wrestling and, social activism, whatever, I think it would be huge in AEW. And I think he could have kind of the resurgence in his career that even Mero had when he finally became God's favorite champion, kind of the dominant force that he was when he was originally Rusev in WWE.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that AEW is probably the landing spot that most people would like to see him in, especially considering that the type of wrestler that they tend to push or kind of put in that main event picture, upper mid card, whatever you want to call it. It's somebody like him. I don't think that AEW has done a great job promoting guys that are, larger. Somebody like, I know Lance Archer just came back. You look at Powerhouse Hobbs, him just losing to, was it Dante Martin? Yep. So, I think they definitely are trying to send a message that, look, that's the type of wrestler that WWE is going to try to push. Maybe they just don't know what to do with guys of that stature, and that's okay. AEW wants to be different than WWE, and they certainly are in that respect. You look at a guy like Darby Allin, who is one of their most popular guys. I think Mustafa Ali can definitely work a much similar style and probably is better on the mic than somebody like a Darby Allin. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good landing spot for him. I don't think Impact Wrestling would be a bad spot for him. If I was to pick between those two, of course, I'd like to see him in AEW, but close second, definitely Impact Wrestling, who is doing some pretty good things right now, too. So
right. But then again, you also have this Ring of Honor and this new version of Ring of Honor that's going to be coming back in April. And some people say he would be great there. But the question is, what is this new Ring of Honor that we're going to have? Are they going to go back to where they were when they first started? Are they going to go kind of the same route that NXT 2.0 is in? I don't know if Ring of Honor would be a good fit because of the uncertainty of what the heck is the Ring of Honor going to be when it relaunches in April. And I think if it is kind of more AEW and more WWE kind of combined-esque, it could work and he could be a top star there. But again, I just think his personality, his character would need more of a mainstream or national audience that Ring of Honor just will not offer at this time.
Maybe not ever. It seems like right now, you've certainly got WWE and they've got a certain fan base. You got some crossover between fans who watch both AEW and WWE. But it definitely seems like there's a divide there. You've got some fans who watch AEW that don't watch WWE, and you have fans that watch WWE that don't watch AEW. Ring of Honor right now coming back into this, it's going to be hard for them to kind of sliver a little piece of the pie out, at least at that level. I think AEW has a really good stranglehold as being that second promotion that is, right now second to WWE, and just in terms of popularity, I don't see Ring of Honor coming in and taking that or dethroning AEW in that sense. So, yeah, just as far as production value and stuff like that, AEW will definitely be able to offer that to Mustafa Ali, and I don't think Ring of Honor will be able to.
Now, what about New Japan Pro Wrestling? They're obviously making more of a presence in America. The New Japan Pro Wrestling strong. We see some of the bigger names like Jay White and Tomohiro Ishii coming to the United States. And even, you have Jonah, formerly Bronson Reed, Buddy Matthews, formerly Buddy Murphy, showing up in New Japan. I think he'd be a great fit there too, because, they are definitely the workhorse promotion in professional wrestling. And they're getting that little bit more notoriety. If he doesn't go to AEW, I think the second landing spot would be New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I think New Japan Pro Wrestling, I mean, we've been having the same conversation about New Japan for how many years now doing this show, about them wanting to make a bigger presence in the United States, wanting to move westward. Now, granted, the pandemic certainly threw a big wrench in those whole plans, but, granted, all those things happening, they've had different guys that they've signed to different contracts, and, it just... To me, I actually don't think New Japan Pro Wrestling is in a position where they're more prominent in the United States right now. I think that if anything, they were much more prominent and more popular when people were paying attention to them when Chris Jericho was there, when Kenny Omega was there, tearing the house down with Tanahashi, or even his matches with Okada. I think that's when they were white hot and people were really paying attention to them. Is there some crossover with guys like Jay White going and working at Impact? Yes, of course there is. Bronson Reed, guys like that going from NXT over to New Japan. It would be a fine move for Mustafa Ali, but I don't think that's going to do anything for them in terms of gaining popularity over here in the United States. I don't think they're in a position where they're more popular now than they were maybe, 4 or 5 years ago when Kenny Omega was there having matches against Okada.
That's true. I mean, let's say hypothetically, his message can't be delivered at all in pro wrestling. There were talks about him, throwing his hat into the Marvel series. Do you think he actually leaves pro wrestling altogether and tries acting?
It's possible. Where the disadvantage for him would be is he's known because he worked in the WWE to wrestling fans, but he's not necessarily like a household, like he's not a Sasha Banks, right? Sasha Banks won a ton of titles. She's main evented many pay-per-views, main evented WrestleMania. So her going and working, what was it, Star Wars? I think I don't pay attention, to be honest. So, but
Mandalorian, yes.
She played a prominent role in that series. She's not like he's not like a John Cena who's going to go and get his own TV show, which I know he just had one that launched, or star in movies and stuff like that. He'd have to really work his way up. So to just think that he'd automatically jump into, a Marvel series where, to begin with, just in Hollywood alone, people, I'm sure, are really trying to fight for different parts and stuff like that. Could he do it? Yeah, I'm sure he could do it. I wouldn't say that it's something that I would see him doing in the immediate future. I think he has a better chance of going to another wrestling promotion, being a mid to upper mid-card level main event guy, I guess, depending on where he goes. I think he stands a better chance making it in pro wrestling to those levels before I see him ever starring in like a Marvel movie or show.
Well, I mean, not necessarily has to be a Marvel movie per se. I mean, he does have experience as a police officer, and there's, still all these crime television shows that I think he could do well into, whether it's an NCIS or a CSI or Law and Order, one of those type of shows where he already has that background and maybe can bring that as an actor to, his real life character. And even in professional acting, like in wrestling, your best roles are typically ones you could connect with and bring your personality to, the nth degree. Maybe that's where he goes. Maybe he goes into television, not necessarily the Marvel movies. I think there is a possibility for him to leave wrestling altogether and become an actor. And I think maybe that would be a better platform for what he wants to do in the future. But who knows? I mean, it's just a speculation game at this point. It's not even for certain that he's going to be granted this release from WWE. But when you see guys that want to be there getting released, why wouldn't they grant the release if he does not want to be there anymore and let him be, what he wants to be and fulfill those things that he just can't in WWE? But, it's just playing predictions, and we'd love to hear your predictions in the comments below. And don't forget, we also have our 2022 predictions. Click the thumbnail on the screen right now, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psycho Babble.